Well, if this one doesn't get me into hot water with old Papa Yams, I don't know what will, but it's time for me to take aim at some of the coolest looking motorcycles you can buy, Scramblers. Modern Scramblers that you can get from a showroom suck, and this time I'm not going to be pulling any punches because unlike 650s where I had to nitpick to really find the flaws, I have some very real issues with the idea of a factory Scrambler motorcycle. I'm going to try and make this as listy as possible for you because the internet loves nothing more than an easily digestible numbered format, but I'm going to go ahead and give you my number one reason right now, because it's the central thesis of this whole video, and if I spoil it for you, oh well. Scrambler motorcycles are fake. I'm sorry, but they just are. Now, before I get too far into this one, I need to remind everyone that I think Scrambler motorcycles are very cool. They look awesome, and Yam's Desert Sled is one of the most enjoyable motorcycles that I've ridden. It's like a big old supermoto with some dirt nods, but that's not going to stop me from tearing this whole segment a new one. And don't worry, turnabout's fair play. I will eventually get an entire list of reasons why sumos suck, just so you know I'm not being partial. I also wanted to address a point in the comments that I've been seeing a lot recently, and it's this. Ride the motorcycles you like. I'm not saying that you shouldn't buy these bikes, I'm merely outlining my issues with all these kinds of bikes because nothing's perfect. So if you disagree with me and you think Scramblers are great, I invite you to join our Discord over on yammie.co and let's have a chat about it. While you're over there, you can get entered to win one of our 7 bikes that we're giving away for free. There's 2 Groms, a Svartpillen, an SV650X, an MT-03, an R1, and a Harley Iron 883 all up for grabs. Also, the R1's going to be given away in pretty short order, so time is running out to get entered for that beast. You'll also get access to some exclusive content, live streams, and more. If you want to pick up some merch over on YammieNoobMerch.com, you'll get 1 entry for every $1 you spend. If you like what we do here and you want to support us, this is the best way to do it. Now, like I said before, reason number 1 why Scrambler motorcycles suck is they're fake. But what do I mean by that? Well, for those of you who don't know, Scrambler culture got started in the late 40s and 50s when GIs on their Harleys decided that street riding was too boring, so they decided to strip all the extra crap off their bikes and they chucked them at some crazy hill climbs. It wasn't just Harleys either. Triumph Bonnevilles were another common choice for the old Scrambly boys to mercilessly abuse. There was a hand-built quality to the Scramblers of old that is completely lacking nowadays. Instead, you just go to your local dealership and buy one, usually with some vintage leather gear, a Biltwell Gringo helmet, and probably a flannel shirt with the emblem of your particular manufacturer's heritage line on it. Sure, you might want to put some farkles on there, like some crash protection or mess with the handlebars a little, but there's very little that's unique about your Scrambler. It's functionally identical to all the other ones out there. I don't want to be gatekeepy here, but the only real Scramblers that I see are bikes like the Dual Sportster, which are these massive one-off conversions of 550-pound cruisers that someone with massive brass balls is chucking down some single track. The Scramblers that you go out and buy have about as much in common with Steve McQueen's T100 as my SMCR has with a real dirt bike. Sure, it looks the part, but I'd be an absolute mad lad if I decided I was going to take that motorcycle off-road. And that leads me into my point number 2 of why Scramblers suck, and that's because they're not designed to be taken off-road. Now, I know that this might be a little confusing, seeing as how I just made a point about dudes with gargantuan testicles taking street bikes off-road being the essence of scrambling, but think about it. You go buy something like the Triumph Scrambler XE, which on Triumph's own website claims to enjoy unparalleled road scrambling and proper off-road capabilities with commanding ergonomics, breathtaking handling, and incredible blah 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 blah. But I mean, come on now. You designed the bike to go off-road and gave it 85/15 Metzler Tourance tires. On their own website, you can see these bikes happily doing massive rolling burnouts that are clearly sporting Pirelli Rally Scorpions. But you want to know why? It's because good old Triumph knows you ain't taking a $15,400 motorcycle off-road. No, they know you're just gonna roll up to the coffee shop, talk about this big ADV rally you're prepping for, but never really seem to have the time to do. The idea of buying a Scrambler is like buying a fashion accessory. Now, I know there's a lot of people who actually do scramble these things. Hell, I helped Yam lift his bike out of a giant mud bog in the Big Bend State Park last month, and those folks truly embody the old Scrambler spirit. But if the gnarliest thing you've seen on your bike is a gravel road, you really should have just gotten a cafe racer. With the exception of the Desert Sled and the XE, the suspensions just aren't designed to play off-road, and credit where it's due, Ducati could have just slapped some front forks from other Scramblers on the sled, but they cared enough to put some legitimate thought into it. They also extended the swing arm for more ground clearance and a longer wheelbase, and oh wait a minute, they just made an ADV bike with none of the benefits of owning an ADV. The next thing on today's list is price, and I alluded to it in the last section, but these Scramblers are just too dang expensive. Sure, the XE is the most expensive of the Triumph Scramblers, if you don't count the 007 Special Edition, but the XC ain't much better at $14,000 even. Now, I do get why they're so expensive. I mean, both Triumph Scramblers have TFT displays, 5 rider modes, including one you can program yourself, slipper clutch, ABS, traction control, keyless ignition, cruise control, Brembo brakes, and they make 88 horsepower and 81 foot-pounds of torque. In fact, I'd go so far as to say if you're looking for a neat, retro-styled second motorcycle that you can keep for the rest of your life, that's it right there. The up-spec versions even got an Öhlins in the rear and fully adjustable shows up front. In fact, on paper, these are better than my bike for sure. I can't help be a little bit jealous, I'm not gonna lie, but are you gonna drop $17,000 out the door and then go thrash that bike off-road? What happens when you drop it and a rock hits that fancy TFT dash and cracks it like a cell phone that just fell down the stairs? That goes beyond the realm of patina and into plain old broken. Ducati Scramblers aren't much better. The base model comes in at $10,000 for the Icon, and for that you get cool old retro styling and... it's a Scrambler without a skid plate. Just let that sink in for a moment. Reason number 4 that Scramblers suck is because they're meant for hipsters. Don't get me wrong, I love a lot of vintage stuff. My dream car is a 1972 Chevelle. I love the look of the BMW R9T family of bikes, and the XSR 700 Neo Retro bikes was one of the most enjoyable things I've ridden all year long. But the current crop of Scramblers were produced because of the success of the modern retro and cafe racer crazes that we went through. I can see the boardroom where these bikes were born, a desperate attempt to chase the current and cool trends, only to land a few years too late. Like I said before, the Scramblers you can buy today are great motorcycles, if a little expensive, but I can't help but think that the second there's a new craze in the industry, all these new Scrambler lines are going to be dropped like a hot potato. For example, let's take a look at how many different Scramblers you can buy from Ducati right now. There's the Icon Tangerine, the Icon Dark, the Cafe Racer, the Desert Sled, the Full Throttle, the 62, the 1100 Pro, and the 1100 Pro Sport. And it's not just Ducati too. BMW makes 4 different R9Ts that are functionally the same bike as the R9T Scrambler. If you don't think that this is unsustainable, just look at what Harley's doing with its Sportsters right now. There used to be a bunch to choose from, now there's 3. It's what happens when companies chase a trend. Our last point today, and yeah, you're only getting 5, but Scramblers suck because they aren't actually Scramblers. They're bikes with some off-road nods and insufferable marketing about authenticity and free spirits, but they're street bikes at heart. There's nothing that truly separates a Scrambler from a supermoto from a cruiser. Like we're fond of saying here at Yammie Noob, any bike can be a dirt bike if you try hard enough. I mean, look at this off-road Goldwing. A massive flat 6 off-road requires Herculean willpower to ride, and there's people with the metal to do it, but the average Joe, they'll pick up a Scrambler, ride it on the road, take it to a trail once or twice and nope out, and then spend the rest of his or her time on the road.
Okay, Spite, well if Scramblers aren't Scramblers, then what's a Scrambler? Come on, Mr. Butthurt Beverly, what you got for me?
Unfortunately, you're probably not going to like it, but the only real Scrambler you can buy from the showroom are dual sports. Yup. Probably no one likes to hear it, but let's use the same credentials I used to judge these other bikes. And we'll use the DRZ 400S, which is a platform I'm very familiar with from our time with it in the Beginner Bike Giveaway series. First, it's not a dedicated dirt bike because it has lights, which mean you can ride it on the street. It's also a little too heavy to be a true dirt bike when you consider something like the KTM lines that come in around 230 pounds soaking wet, and the DRZ 400 is like 320. So by that metric, it is a bad dirt bike, which is a good start for any claim to Scramblerhood. It's cheap at $6,749, which means that anyone can go pick one up, and it doesn't come with a bunch of unnecessary stuff like TFT dashes, rider modes, or something that would wound you to the very pits of your soul if you binned it off-road, or even if you dumped it on the street trying to practice a wheelie. I mean, I'm pretty sure at one point my DRZ was skidding down the asphalt upside down, and it still runs. Kinda, sorta. It runs okay. Despite not being pure off-road machines, they actually do have the ability to crush some pretty hardcore stuff off-road, thanks to a very long suspension, 21-inch front wheels, and stock skid plates. They can also handle some twisty roads even if the knobbies aren't the most effective tire for the job. Best of all, in my opinion, there's no pretensions surrounding dual sports. They're ugly and they know it, they're slow and they know it, and it just doesn't matter. Dual sport riders understand the old Scrambler spirit of going anywhere and doing anything on two wheels, and that's the essence of what makes scrambling great. So if you're in the market for a Scrambler because you like the adventurous image that Triumph, Ducati, Indian, BMW, and Yamaha have tried so hard to associate with their overpriced street bikes, I urge you to take a look at a dual sport. If you're serious about riding both on-road and off in equal measure, you're gonna have way more fun.
Now how you doing, partner? This video's over, but you click on this one right over here, you keep watching yourself some Yammie Noob. Maybe I bend my boost on this one, maybe I'll give you some other funny memes or something like that. You might not know if you watch the video, so watch the video now, alright?